There I was, laying on the table, suffering the same fate as both of my parents, as the doctor shoved a small camera up my nose and down my throat to see how far my acid reflux and nightly heartburn had progressed. After what seemed like forever, he pulled the tube out, took off his gloves, and said, "Dennis, your esophagus has gone through hell. It's fiery red, full of lesions, and has constricted, like someone took your esophagus by their hand and squeezed it shut. We're going to perform a few more tests, but it looks like we might have to perform surgery sooner rather than later. If not, your esophagus will only erode away from the stomach acid, and you could get cancer. It's a real possibility in your case." Just like that, my fate was handed to me, and all I could think about was my 3 girls. In my mind, it was take care of this or die, and leave them without a parent. But little did I know at the time how this potentially life-altering diagnosis and 3 months of chronic diarrhea that left me a prisoner in my own home would accidentally lead to a natural solution that extinguished my acid reflux, erased my nightly heartburn, and wiped away GERD from my life for good. For the first time in years, I was able to eat spaghetti and meatballs with all the tomato sauce I wanted, drink coffee again without a problem, and enjoy a nice drink on the weekend with friends. But even more important than that came the freedom I'd never have to pop another antacid or take another antacid like Nexium, Prilosec, or more, and I would never suffer the same fate as both my parents and millions of others who develop esophageal or stomach cancer related to chronic heartburn. That's why if you suffer from acid reflux and or have been diagnosed with GERD, if you stick with me for the next few minutes, I'll show you the one easy tip that accidentally neutralized my chronic heartburn for good. This 100% natural and 100% safe tip is backed by numerous studies from some of the most prestigious universities in the world, and is proof of just how simple it could be for you to fix this painful condition once and for all. Because the true cause of most GERD cases has nothing to do with your stomach, but more so your intestines. Yes, your intestines. In one study, scientists discovered those who suffered from chronic acid reflux all had this same problem in their gut, specifically a weed-like bacteria that flourishes in those who've been diagnosed with GERD and deal with its daily symptoms. That's why in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how popping antacids like candy and taking medication like Nexium, Prilosec, or others will do nothing to fix this underlying cause of acid reflux, and could even make it worse, causing this bacteria to spread and multiply even more. But luckily, out of my own personal hell, I accidentally stumbled upon a unique breakthrough that's as simple as brushing your teeth, which eased my symptoms and put out my fiery reflux like water drowning a fire. And now, thanks to one group of individuals, you have the chance to do the same. Just follow this simple tip and watch as you experience less acid buildup, discomfort in your chest when lying down, or problems swallowing. You'll be shocked to notice how certain foods that once used to give you problems, you can now eat and enjoy without worry, because your stomach and digestive system will be working in harmony again. I'm also going to show you the #1 worst type of food you must stay away from if you suffer from acid reflux, heartburn, or have been diagnosed with GERD. And I promise it has nothing to do with staying away from coffee, tomatoes, citrus and acidic foods, alcohol, or more. Stay away from this food in the beginning, and I promise you'll notice your symptoms clear up quickly, especially when you follow this simple breakthrough that put out my acid reflux, along with many others who've watched this quick presentation. Like Henry, who said, "Recently I was admitted to the hospital because of profuse vomiting. It felt like my intestines were going to come out of my mouth. When I got home, I had to go on a bland diet. No fatty foods, salty foods, sour foods. I just ate rice, oats, and biscuits and got so thin from it. 3 weeks later, I was admitted again with the same signs and symptoms. That was the last straw, so I decided to do some digging and somehow found your video. I did what you said, and I've been symptom-free for the past 14 days. Tonight, I plan on going out with the missus for our anniversary dinner, and I'm hoping my GERD won't rear its ugly head. Thank you." And Rebecca, who wrote in and said, "I was being treated for GERD the last 6 months after complaining of chest pain and a burning sensation in my chest and back. I went to the doctor and he said it's probably anxiety. No, it's not, sir. I went to another specialist who told me it's GERD and I might need surgery. I felt stuck and didn't know what to do or who to believe, but your video set the record straight. My chest is no longer burning at night when I lay down. I'm eating more of my favorite foods again, and I haven't had a bad episode in the last 4 weeks. And Tammy, who said, I've been dealing with acid reflux since I was 35. I'm now 51. Up until a few years ago, my symptoms were hit or miss depending on what I ate, but now they're constant. Besides the burning, it's now getting harder to swallow food. In the morning, I wake up and it feels like a ball of mucus is at the back of my throat. Eating has been hard, and the medication they gave me didn't help much. However, a friend of mine pointed me to your video, and a lot of these signs and symptoms, like the heavy pressure on my chest, the burning pain, and more, have all lessened. 4 out of the 7 days a week, I feel normal, which has given me a lot of hope that my GERD will only improve with time and eventually be erased from my daily life. You see, it's really simple. You just follow this natural, scientifically backed tip. Then watch in amazement as you gradually forget that you have acid reflux in the first place. Now, I have to be upfront and honest with you. I just read a report there's a few lobbyists down in D.C. that would love for this natural solution not to exist. Too much money is being made by a few very large companies who profit off the 20 million Americans who've been diagnosed with GERD or suffer from daily heartburn. So, please, watch this quick presentation now while you can, and it's still available. Now, you're probably wondering, who the heck am I, and why should you listen to anything I have to say? Hi, I'm Dennis Walker. I'm 64 years old. I've got 3 beautiful grown girls. I'm recently retired and live in Beaufort County, South Carolina. And if it wasn't for my oldest daughter recommending this simple tip for something unrelated to my acid reflux, who knows where I'd be today? You see, I grew up with 2 parents who had constant heartburn. Dad always had antacids in his pocket and Mom kept them on her nightstand. I just thought it was a thing all adults suffered from. So, when I started to suffer from heartburn in my early 30s, I didn't think of it as something I should seek treatment for. I just started buying big bottles of antacids and sleeping on a pile of pillows to elevate my head. For me, heartburn became a normal way of life and remained that way until it became the focal point for our family. The burning got so bad, Mom told me that they rushed Dad straight to the emergency room. They thought he was having a heart attack, but it turned out to be severe acid reflux. It was so severe, they looked down his throat then and there, and with more testing, discovered he had esophageal cancer. 5 months later, he died from it. It was so far along that it just spread. I'm sure it didn't help that he smoked, but the leading cause of his type of cancer, the doctor said, was chronic acid reflux. Obviously, I didn't want to end up like my father, so I religiously popped antacids like clockwork, believing it would suppress my acid reflux so much so that esophageal cancer could never and would never rear its ugly head. I thought, well, if there's no acid to cause it, then I'll never get it. And this went on for years. Everything remained normal, and I rarely had an episode, unless I ate a big meal before bed or when my wife used to make me my favorite, a big bowl of spaghetti and meatballs. But when she passed away, that's when everything changed. My acid reflux went into overdrive from the stress, and no matter what I tried, nothing worked to calm this fiery pit in my stomach that would boil over and explode up into my esophagus every night before bed. Some mornings I'd wake up and it would feel like a 50-pound weight was on my chest. Going out to eat became a chore. No soda, no alcohol, no sauces, heavy creams, spices. I felt trapped. And at least once a week, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with heart palpitations. This is how I lived for months, with little sleep and chronic heartburn every day. I began losing weight, my energy suffered, and I started to feel hopeless. That's when I made an appointment and saw my doctor, who told me the same thing all of us acid reflux sufferers know, like stay away from coffee, tomatoes, carbonated drinks, any citrus or acidic foods, alcohol, large meals, and more. But when he put that small camera up my nose and down my throat to see how everything looked, I wasn't expecting the results. It looked like a bomb had gone off in my esophagus. There was destruction everywhere, and all I could think about was my dad, his diagnosis, and how, 5 months later, he was dead. He wrote me a prescription for a strong proton pump inhibitor and told me to come back in a few months to see if this prescription helped calm things down. He said if nothing cleared up, we'd need to perform surgery right away because I was on my way to a likely cancer diagnosis. Then, what seemed like the snap of a finger, out of nowhere, I fell ill. I was tired all the time. I'd get chills that would come and go and body aches that were so severe some days I couldn't get out of bed. I wasn't sure if this had anything to do with my acid reflux or these drugs my doctor prescribed me. So I went back and sure enough, they diagnosed me with something I wasn't expecting: Lyme disease. I love working in the garden, so it made sense. But to counteract the disease, I was placed on an intensive antibiotics regimen, which was the spark that lit the match and led me to discover this revolutionary breakthrough for acid reflux. You see, it was this combination of acid reflux medicine and a heavy course of antibiotics that sent me down a dark path for close to 3 months. I couldn't eat anything because of the acid reflux, and because of this combo of meds, I was constantly running to the bathroom. It was so embarrassing, humiliating, and painful. I felt alone, like I was the only one dealing with this problem in the world. My family and friends were supportive, but I knew they didn't really get it. It completely changed the course of my day-to-day life. I became a hermit. I never wanted to leave the house, and I didn't for a while. I was placed on more medication to combat the stomach distress, and that's when I had enough. So I started doing my own research, and that's when my daughter, a physician's assistant, told me about the team of experts from Golden After 50 who specialize in helping men and women of my generation live a healthier, happier, more energetic life, using natural, science-based methods to help combat numerous ailments. They shared so much eye-opening information with me about GERD and my condition. And because you're here right now, I'm going to share this same information with you. The first piece of info they shared with me were all the terrible side effects from taking these proton pump inhibitors. According to a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association, they found those who take PPIs had an increased risk of hip fractures, and this risk increased if subjects were taking these drugs for a longer period of time or at a higher dose. It turns out, because of the nature of these drugs, they block calcium absorption in your stomach. So although this study only looked at hip fractures, there's a good chance your entire bone structure could become weakened over time, and why those with osteoporosis really need to be careful when taking these proton pump inhibitors. Now, this was only the beginning. Then they shared another study published on Cardiology Advisor that showed how these PPIs, even the over-counter remedies, were linked to an increased risk of heart failure, even death. The leading researcher of the study stated, "In patients with coronary artery disease, PPI use seems to be an independent risk factor that could increase the incidence of heart failure and even death." But still, that's not all. Another study published in the World Journal of Gastrointestinal Pharmacology and Therapeutics showed there was a higher rate of pneumonia in older subjects who received PPIs over a 2-year period, leading the researchers to conclude, "Our study adds to growing evidence that PPIs are not quite as safe as previously thought." But in my opinion, one of the worst side effects is how these proton pump inhibitors physicians prescribe to treat GERD could increase your chances of developing chronic diarrhea by accelerating the overgrowth of this weed-like bacteria in your gut that's also responsible for acid reflux. And this is not